Okay, so multiplication in reception. It's very, very minimal. It is the very start of multiplication. We don't actually use that word either. We don't tell them it's multiplication. We don't want to confuse them anymore. As you can see, it progresses so much within like 3 years. It's absolutely unbelievable. But we do doubling. So it's kind of like the beginning, the start, even though it is, you know, it is adding as well. But basically doubling is twice as many. We will obviously do it with other objects as well that's in the classroom, but obviously our maths resources we use. These are 10 frames, I just couldn't fit 3 on there, so we've just made them a bit smaller. But obviously we'd use the counters again, so obviously double 1, 2, double 2, etc. as it goes on. We also use our numicon as well, but we can see double. You can move them out there, we put them together and it actually makes 6 as well. Also we use our multi-link cubes, and we actually do use dominoes quite a lot in class as well, but we can see they are the double, and obviously they can either count them or they might recognise that actually that's 5 straight away without counting them, which we use the word sabotage in reception as well. I'm sure some of the children have come home saying the word sabotage. You're thinking, what are they talking about? But it's just basically quickly recognising without counting. But you can see we've got some double dominoes there. But that is the beginning and the start of multiplication.
Multiplication year 1. So they would start with the concrete. Here we have numicon and counting in 2s, counting on and back in 2s. Other resources are also used. Pictures of, let's say, pairs of socks would be used, 2p coins, all that, you know, things that they would see in life that you would count in 2s. They would then move on to counting in 5s and counting in 10s. It would be talked about as being repeated addition. Eventually, when we would come on to the abstract, pictorially the children can draw groups of whatever number they're counting on in. So in this case they're counting on in 2, so they'll have 2 in each of the little groups, but equally they could have 5 or 10. And then counting on, counting back, and this would be then leading on to their times table, so that they would be able, they're able to count in 2s, they're able to count in 5s, they're able to count in 10s. The abstract shows the number of sentences repeated addition, 2 plus 2 plus 2, and then leading on to the actual multiplication symbol, 3 lots of 2, which you can see 3 lots of 2 when you now have 2, 4, 6. That is more or less multiplication for year 1. But any items really that you could group, so things that you could do at home would be to count in 2s with every day you're putting away socks or whatever, and you're counting in 2s, 2p coins, how many do we have? So they would have that practical experience of it. They use number songs, chants, jumping on in lines, counting on in 2s, counting on in 5s, counting on in 10s. So that would be multiplication, or is multiplication in year 1.
Okay, so year 2 multiplication is just on one board. We're going to start with looking at our multiplication question, 3 times 5. So we would talk about the vocabulary around times multiplication. We would say, what else could we say? So we would begin with groups of 3 groups of 5, 3 lots of 5. Then we would begin to say 3 times 5, 3 multiplied by 5, just so that they're really understanding the vocabulary. So here we've got the concrete, so they might be given some little number questions which say 3 groups of 5, and we would want them to make it using counters. Counters is quite an easy way for them to be able to transfer it into the pictorial in their books, and they also just look a bit prettier for them to look at. So we've got 3 here going down, 3 rows. So I put the number 3 at the side, and then we would have a row of 5, a group of 5 going across. When they are counting, it's really important that they are ensuring that they only have the right number going across, so 5 counters going across. What can tend to happen, they might add another column, so then they're ending up with 3 times 6. So it is important for when that comes to the pictorial parts. When they're drawing it into their books, they would start again, 3 and 5. This helps them to count down 3 and then 5 across. When it comes to actually working out the answer, we do lots of practice of skip counting. 5, 10, 15, 20, and just putting the totals at the end just helps them calculate the answer. So here, instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're more than likely going to make a mistake and there'll be inaccuracies. So just put in 5, 10, 15, they can work out the answer much easier. Here is the bar model. So we might start the lesson with 3 groups. They're putting 5 into each group, and as Mrs. Hindle said, creating that underneath can just help them that little bit more visually. So if they're making it at home, they could get 5 pencils, another group of 5 pencils, another group of 5 pencils, and then it's 5, 10, 15, and then they'll be able to fill in their answer. This leads into the abstract, which they get very excited to do because it's the end game for them, and then they can do 3 times 5, and then they're understanding, oh, I can do 5 times 3. So already they're beginning to listen to other times tables. In year 2, the main focus is 2, 5s and 10s, but obviously they will become familiar and known to other times tables if they're doing like 5 times 3. So they're hearing other times tables. Arrays, we have done this in class. They really enjoy making their own arrays, and it's something that they just seem to grasp quite quickly. So that's multiplication year 2.
Multiplication in year 3. We pick up the story from our 2s, 5s and 10s, and we add in our multiplications of 3s, 4s and 8s. And the key with the 4s and the 8s, just like our 5s and 10s, is to realise that they are the double of each other. Right, 24 times 5. So children will get the counters, they'll put them into their 24, and then we will carry on. So we've got our second row, which is 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. So we have our rows which help to organise. When we then multiply, we count up in our 4s first. So our 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So we have our 20. We know that 20 won't fit into our 1s, so our 2 10s will move over, and the children will get into the habit of adding their extra numbers in, and we have 1 0 left in our 1s column. We then count up our 10s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we end up with 12 10s. Again, we can't have 12 10s, so their children would know to exchange the 10 groups of 10 for 100. Have one there. So they would add up those 10 and leave it with their 20. So we'd end up with 120 as our place value. We then move into pictorially, or we'd use our abstract numbers at this point. So we would put in our 20 5 times with our 4, and again we would get into the habit of now starting to make it look like a multiplication sum. So our 4 5 times would be 20. We know that 20 is 2 10s. We then count up our 20s, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. We can't put 120, so we move to the next column. We then look at our pictorial view again, where you can make sure that the number of rows, 5 rows, means that we're multiplying by 5. So then it visually helps the children to work out which stages we're working through. So again, your 20 and your 4, because we're now working in a grid, the children are really quick at seeing that link between the multiplying 5 and the 5 rows. We then move from this into our more abstract cue again, where we have our 5 groups of 20, which are 100, our 5 groups of 4, which are 20, and then we get into the habit of adding them together to make 120. This is also helpful when we're looking at our arithmetic calculations. The language that's really important for year 3 with multiplication is using the word groups of, so 5 groups of 4, 5 lots of 4, 5 multiplied by 4, and that 20 is 5 multiples of 4.